Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm HeyWhitneyLu, and if you're new here, welcome. Today we're gonna do a DIY tutorial on fanny packs, and we'll be making this fanny pack right here. Let me close it right quick. You guys see it, you see it. And it's inspired by the Supreme x Louis Vuitton collaboration. We're gonna be making our own DIY fanny packs today. And of course, I'll have a pattern for those of you that don't want to make your own, but I will teach you in the video how to make your own pattern. But yeah, so just stay tuned to the end because I will be giving you details on these because I will be selling them if you're interested. So let's get to the video. Need 1/4 of a yard of vinyl, a belt buckle, 1 yard of 1-inch belt strap, a 14-inch zipper. You need sewing machine leather needles, thread that matches, and 1/4 yard of lining. Since we're making an inspired Supreme x Louis Vuitton fanny pack, we need to check out what pieces that we'll need, like the flaps, the front, the back, and the top part. So for the fanny packs, it was kind of hard to explain when I was doing voiceover, so I decided to put diagrams of how the pattern should look and then measurements at the tops and side of the screens for each piece. So hopefully this explains it very well. It was really hard to get all this information in a short video, so just follow my diagram that I gave you and you should be fine. Make sure that you add your seam allowances afterwards, so that the thing will be exactly like the diagram when it's finished. And other than that, you should be okay. When cutting out your pattern, make sure that you curve all the sharp edges and make sure that your sides match together. Like if the front and a back at the bottom, those things need to match, your sides need to match, your zipper placements need to match. Now I'm drawing out the last piece to the fanny pack pattern. It's the side flaps. After this, you'll need to add your seam allowances to all the pieces, which should be a 1/2 inch, and then cut out your pieces. Next, you need to cut out 1 front and back on fold, 4 side flaps, and 1 cutout of the top of the fanny pack. After cutting, your pieces should look like this. And if you choose to do linings, you'll just need a front, a back, and a top of the fanny pack piece. Grab your fanny pack front and your zipper. We'll be working with this piece first. We're going to fold over our seam allowance on the top edge of our fanny pack front so that it'll be easier to pin down when we place our zipper. After you're finished folding the seam allowance, pin down your zipper on one side, and then you'll need a top stitch along that edge at 1/4. Your top stitch edge should look like this. Grab your fanny pack top and repeat the same steps. Fold over the seam allowance and pin it to your zipper. It should start creating a convex shape. Top stitch that side of the zipper at 1/4 inch. At this point, your fanny pack should be taking shape. You will need to top stitch or hand stitch the edges of your fabric on the zipper tape closed, just so it's easier to maneuver later on. I decided to hand sew mine closed. You can do it however you want to. Just make sure you really do this step or things are going to start moving later. On the Supreme fanny pack, it had piping, so let's start on that. I made my own piping, which is optional. You don't have to do this. It just gives it structure. But I used scraps of fabric and twirled thread around it until it made a long piece of piping. You can actually buy this at the store. I would recommend a yard if you want to do it. I cut out 2-inch strip of my vinyl and I just pinned the piping inside of it and pinned it along the edges. After pinning, your piping should look like this, and you would just top stitch along the pipe on the inside. You should feel it. Then you need to pin the piping to the edges of the fanny pack. Once I got back to the edge of the piping where I started, I decided I wanted to sandwich one end of the piping over the beginning piping so that it will be a continuous pipe around the whole thing and not some big bulky patch on the top. After you have all that pinned into place, then you will sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. With the piping, it should look like this. Grab your side flaps and place them right sides together. You will need to pin them on the side edges, not at the top or the bottom. Sew the side seams at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. After sewing, it should look like this, and then you'll need to fold it right sides out. Make sure that your belt flaps can fit through that small hole. Then you'll need to grab your belt straps and place them through the side flaps and pin it together. You're going to top stitch along the edge at a 4 seam allowance. Repeat the same steps for the other end of your belt. Your top stitching should look like this. You will then need to pin the side flaps to the fanny pack. The long edge needs to face the bottom. My daughter decided she wanted to be part of the tutorial, so I'm sorry guys, she's in this clip. After pinning your flaps, it should look like this. Then sew those down at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Because it's so many layers of vinyl, things are going to get thick on you, so don't get discouraged if it's getting hard to sew through your machine. You'll just need to hammer all the sections where you're sewing at so that it'll be nice and flat. If your sewing machine can't handle the thickness, your seam allowance will look like this on the inside. Grab your back piece and start pinning that right sides together. If you tuck in the side flaps in the belt, it should be easier to pin around. You will then need to sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. At this point, my seam allowance is trash going through all those layers of fabric, but it's okay, it's still strong and sturdy. You then need to open your zipper and flip your fanny pack right side out. Your fanny pack should look like this, and now we're gonna work on the straps. To complete the straps, you need to grab your belt buckle. For the short side, you'll need to measure 12 inches. For the long side, you'll need to measure 24 inches or shorter. To add the belt buckle piece, I just followed the instructions, sliding through my strap, pinning it down, and then following the directions on the other side. I decided to follow some of the accessories that I saw on the fanny packs, like the belt loop. This part is totally optional. I decided to cut mine off because I didn't like it, but you just have to fold over a little scrap of fabric, sew at the side seams, and create a little loop and just slide it through onto your strap. And on the Supreme fanny pack, it even had a leather end piece on it, and I liked how that looked. So I decided to add that to this fanny pack. For the leather piece at the end of the strap, I decided to hamburger style some scrap of fabric and just side seam it on the edges so that it'll stay in place. Again, all these extras are optional. You don't have to do it. I just wanted to make mine a little like the Supreme one without being a total copycat. To finish the other end of the belt buckle, I decided to do a square stitch on the strap. It should look something like this when you're finished. And because I had so much ugly thread showing, I decided to do my lining on the inside. For the lining, I repeated all the steps like I did on the fanny pack pieces, except I left where the zipper part open so that we can sew that to the zipper tape later. Your lining should look like this with the zipper part still open. You can just stick that directly inside your fanny pack, and then we'll start pinning along the zipper tape edge. So here I'm just adjusting my lining and folding over the seam allowance edge so I can start pinning it down. I highly recommend adding lining to your fanny pack so that it covers up all the ugliness on the inside. Also, don't pin your lining so close to the zipper tape because it'll be really hard for you to open your zipper later on. After pinning my lining to my zipper tape, I decided I wanted to hand sew mine. You can always use your sewing machine for this step. It's just my sewing machine can only handle so much leather, so I decided to hand sew. I finished hand sewing off camera, but this is how the lining should look after you're done, all super clean and professional. And this is the finished product of the fanny pack. It should look a lot like this when you're finished. For those of you who choose not to do piping, your fanny pack will look like my yellow one. This one didn't have the piping in it, and like I said, the piping gives it more structure, but it's still cute. You'll just probably have to iron out the little pointy edges. On my fanny pack, I practiced some embossing on it. I'm just showing you ways on how you can embellish your own fanny pack to make it your own. You can add studs like I was showing here. You can add appliques. I found these online. I cannot remember what website, but they look super cool. I might actually add this Kaboom one to mine later on. Or if you want to follow the Supreme logo type look, you can always add on sticky letters. I suggest that you hot glue these onto the vinyl. If not, it will not stay. So you guys just watched the whole entire tutorial. Do you feel confident that you can make your own? Hopefully I gave you clear enough directions on how to make it. I will be selling these fanny packs for my church's beautification fund, which is just to fix like the ceiling, the lights, random things in my church building that are broken that need to get fixed. And I wanted to do my part for my church. I've been trying to figure out for months now where I stand in my church, how I can contribute, and I can always do t-shirts and stuff like that, but I feel like it's really basic and I can give more to my church. So if you decide that you want your own, you will be donating to First Mount Carmel in Houston, Texas. I will be leaving the information for my church down below if you decide that you want to help out and just need verification that this is a real thing and not a scam, because it's not a scam. This is for the Lord. I'll leave a link to my website where you'll be able to find these, and it'll have a color option where you can choose it, and I will be having my logo imprinted on the fanny pack too. It's a real functioning purse. So if you decide to buy it, you'll have an awesome handmade gift made with love, and it'll be an offering to God. So if you find that you want to get one, thank you so much, and I will see you guys in my next video. Hopefully it will be sooner than 2-3 weeks, but I'm really excited about the next video. So I will see you guys later, and stay blessed. Yeah, you guys, I tried feed-in braids. and I 63% failed. And then I had the audacity to try to do baby hairs.